tested the Rousseau Gambit. In this video, I'll share some tips, my impressions on it, idea, both sides, both white and black. So first of all, what I want to mention is that watching this video, you probably know that the Rousseau Gambit opening the black chooses against the Italian king. So in this position, for Rousseau Gambit to happen, black should play pawn f5 like this. And if you watched my previous video, that was the King's Gambit, make sure you didn't miss it. In King's Gambit, white also pushes the f pawn, but here honestly feels like it's a bit more dangerous for black because the bishop is already on c4 and it's shooting on this diagonal and especially on this square close to the king. Of course, white can play knight g5 right away, but that's one of the most typical ideas in this kind of situations. And honestly, from my experience, black king on e8 is not as happy as the white king on e1 in the King's Gambit, if you know what I mean. But either way, the king e8 is a very, I would say, grumpy piece in this position because it can castle this side, it could be dangerous to castle this side, so you really have to play very well with black to be able to create some tactics, in my opinion. So first of all, against f5 there are two good options, but before I continue with them, I want to let you know that you don't want to take on f5, you don't want to play knight c3. Let's start with knight c3, because if you play knight c3 you could just blunder your piece this way. That's not what you want to do right in the opening, and accepting the gambit could be dangerous just because that could be the only position when you give your opponent some counterplay. I mean, not the only position, but that could be the most dangerous position for you. So after you take, they could attack your knight, you have to move it away somewhere, then they go knight f6, they go pawn d5, and they completely attack you. And that could be quite unpleasant, especially if they push d5, they kind of block this diagonal, which makes it a bit safer for black. So either way, don't take on f5, and that's practically the most popular idea for black. Of people that play the Rousseau Gambit, they want white to take on f5, and you know you don't want your opponent to get what they want. So there are two good lines against f5. One of them is calm, it's d3. Another one is d4, it's more aggressive, and that could lead to you getting a lot of advantage right away. But if you choose to be calmer and you want to play d3, make sure that you and some common ideas here. First of all, you don't want them to develop their bishop to b4. For example, if you play knight c3 right now, oh sorry, I forgot to make the move for black. They play knight f6, you don't want to play knight c3, or you don't want to make any other random move because black would give you a check and you'll have to block with something. Let's say in our game that we played, my friend played knight c3, and that really helped me because after bishop b4 I managed to get rid of this unpleasant knight, because some common ideas for white is bishop g5 and then knight d5. So I managed to get rid of it, and I also managed to ruin the pawn structure a little bit, which is nice, and it's not as bad for white to play anymore, because yeah, white could play bishop g5, but without the knight it may not be as dangerous. So either way, if you play d3, make sure you castle next, and you're not worried about losing on e4. With the development that black has, it is just devastating to take on e4 this way. I mean, there are a lot of good options for white. You can even play rook e1, which is, by the way, the best move. You're attacking the knight, then you take on e5, so black king is just crying on e8. It's terrible to get into this position. So either way, if you play d3, chances are after knight f6 castling they play bishop c5, and the position could be quite normal, but as you can see the arrows, I pointed out the common ideas for white. With this knight on c3 and then d5, bishop g5, you can create some problems for black. And of course the game will continue. Let me show you a typical line. Bishop g5, knight a5 is the best move for people who know the Rousseau Gambit. they're trying to take this bishop, and what you can do is quite fun. You can take on f6 yourself after they take knight d5, attacking the queen, and then you have a wonderful move pawn b4. So if they take your bishop, you take theirs. And practically, once again, there is nothing dangerous about black's plans in this position. However, you still have to be very careful when you play against the Rousseau Gambit. But let me show you the second position where you want to be careful and you want to calculate a lot of things all the time. And it's d4. It's a fascinating position after d4. You kinda, both ways, by the way, I forgot to mention, when you play d3 or d4, you open your bishop. So you kinda prepare knight g5 for the future. And one thing I also forgot to mention, in this position before castling, you don't want to play knight g5 because it gives black some counterplay right away. Your king is still in the center, the pawn on g2 is unprotected, so they have an idea like this and then like this, distracting your bishop, and now black could get some interesting counterplay. So you don't want to play knight g5 before you castle in this case to defend the g2 pawn with your king. Let's say you did decide to play d4. Black has two options here, taking here or here. And guys, in both ways, white is good. So once again, you can already deduct what I think about the Rousseau Gambit. That was interesting, but it's quite dangerous with black. So in one of the games that we played, my friend, hold on, I'm gonna change the slide now. In one of the games that we played, my friend took on d4 first. I pushed e5, and you can see this pawn structure is not good for black at all. We're gaining this d4 pawn in the future, and look at those pawns. Here it's just important to not do what I did. That was just stupid of me. This bishop is like very sad. Yes, the king is castled, but look at those pawns, and instead of trying to target those pawns like this, which would give you a long-term advantage because of the pawn structure, those are weaknesses you can attack, and black can't develop their bishop normally. Instead of doing this, I just made a silly move, knight e6, helping black trade their bad bishop. So overall, here you have a long-term advantage. Black has some more chances if instead of taking on d4, they take on e4, attacking this knight. And that looks like black got some solid position, but honestly here white has a lot of different options, and one of them is to do what I did. I played bishop f4, and then my friend was trying to develop the king side, because as you can see that could be quite dangerous to castle queen side, because we have something like c4 opening the files, and given that the pawn on is on d5, maybe black could castle short side. But then the question arises how black should develop, because they can't do it normally, practically not in this case. And my friend played knight h6, which gave me a very beautiful idea that I honestly didn't see. I think I could have taken on here and then queen h5 check and take on d5. I just didn't see that I could take on d5, and I blew my chances like several times in this game, and eventually I lost. But the idea is it's very hard for black to develop pieces. That's option number one. And option number two, you could just play something like pawn to f3, your king is safe, you'll castle next move, or you could castle first and then play pawn to f3, and that would be a forever weakness. Let me give you an example. So here you could even protect with the pawn, and in the future you target e4, your king can't be attacked, and I mean you're just gonna gain this pawn. If they decide to take with the knight, however, that would be even better for you, because after the castle you're the one who develops first, and if they castle like this trying to complete the development, I think you'll just win the game immediately. So either way, this pawn is not a strength for black, it's a weakness, and you can try to target it. Meanwhile, it's easy for you to defend your pawn if it's necessary. So that's about this position. But either way, when you play against the Rousseau Gambit or you play the Rousseau Gambit, you want to always be looking out for tactics. The positions can be very beautiful and complicated, and let me just give you a couple of tactical ideas and the beauty of chess that We really enjoyed playing this match, and if you haven't seen it yet, you can check it out live. I'm gonna attach the link here. Let me just show you a couple of possible ideas. First of all, that was the position that we played. I was white, and what we noticed is one of the most common ideas for black is the Greek gift sacrifice, and in this position it may look like it doesn't work because the queen is not on d8, so it can jump to h4 right away, but you can pause the video and try to find the Greek gift sacrifice if you're interested. And we continue because black has this, check, and then they have queen to d6. Trying to get here, and if I try to block, the queen maneuvers her way to h6 and it still gets to h2. So a very complicated position, but beautiful for black, and the same idea happened in a different game as well, so you really have to beware and look out for your king if you're white, and for black just keep in mind this idea. But the beauty of this game wasn't the bishop h2 idea, it was this idea. Pause the video and try to find what I did with white pieces. Bishop a6, what a beauty, I just enjoyed it and I wanted to share it with you guys. Check, the king goes here, and every piece works with its counterpart, like every single piece is in the game. Bishop g5 check, we have to block, rook d1, and we win the queen, and later on we win the game, which is incredibly beautiful. Once again, when you play the Rousseau Gambit, the positions can be complicated and tricky. Now I just want to show you a different position that happened and that I can completely missed with black pieces. Here, white played rook a1, and it's obvious that white wants to do a discovered attack, like bishop f7, but since it's black to move, I could take the pawn on a4, and my calculations were like that. I thought, okay, I take, you can even watch it live because I think I was saying it out loud. So I thought, oh, bishop d5, I discovered attack, I lose my knight. The game is over, so I didn't take on e4. So that was like 3 moves in mind, but if you continue and you continue calculating longer, you can see you take here, and in this position, it's actually equal. Black has the compensation for the piece, so many pawns, and after a5 they actually get some chances to promote, which is beautiful. So if you can, try to calculate longer, further when you play the Rousseau Gambit. The positions can be quite beautiful but dangerous for both sides, so you should be always on the lookout for any tactics, any complications, and the Greek sacrifices for both sides, I would say. But either way, I wouldn't recommend it. To summarize what I just showed you, for black on long term, I would say scale, because it's quite dangerous, and this bishop on c4 is, I mean, it becomes even more dangerous after the pawn pushes. The king is not that happy, so you can play the Rousseau Gambit if you're confident in your tactical skills and you're ready to lose a lot of games to gain some experience, because when you gain some experience you can recognize some common ideas and find them fast in blitz. Definitely not for rapid or classics. Personally, I don't think I'll play the Rousseau Gambit again unless I just want to have some fun and, I don't know, shock my opponent. But apart from that, I like the positions with white a bit more. They have a long strategic advantage, either if they play d3 or d4. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think of this video.